Welcome back, America. This is Betsy McCoy filling in for Steve Malzberg today, and I'm talking with Hank Sheinkopf, Democratic strategist. Many of you may not know something I know about Hank, which is he's about to earn his PhD in political science, and his specialty is the role of the Catholic Church and American Catholics in politics. So I'm going to broaden out our discussion of Mario Cuomo, because there was a time in American history not so long ago when being a Catholic was an issue.
No question about it. If you look at the history of American politics, there is a deep strain of anti-Catholicism that runs through it. People were afraid of Catholics. They were afraid of the Pope. They believed that somehow if you elected Catholics that the Pope would be running America. Kind of ridiculous. The great move was if you really want to understand this, you look at, for as a starter, at the presidential election of 1928.
Al Smith.
the happy warrior from New York, running for president. Newspapers across the country, and that was the primary medium.
Questioning his loyalty.
Questioning his loyalty to the United States, reminding people that if you voted for Al Smith, you would have Romanism and rebellion. Kind
Everything
of despicable.
changed with JFK.
JFK changed everything and frankly made Catholics no longer an outgroup, because if you could elect the president who was Catholic, then you obviously were not on the outside of the American system. Very important day, but it also created a new problem, which is Irish Catholics and Italian Catholics had never repaired the kind of competition they had between them. And Mario Cuomo understood that very well. He was an Italian Catholic.
His parents were from Naples.
Yeah,
Naples, Italy.
The anti-Italian sentiment and thus the anti-Catholic sentiment kind of melded as one. Very difficult for him, and he experienced discrimination as a result.
I didn't realize that. Discrimination from Irish Catholics?
Well, there was the battle, and particularly the New York Archdiocese, between Italian and Irish Catholic was very significant. The Archdiocese being Irish dominant, and the Italian Catholics coming from a very different culture with very different set of mores and behaviors.
And now, when you look at this year's Republican bench for the presidential race, several of the contenders are Roman Catholics.
I think it's pretty extraordinary. If you look at the Supreme Court, you have Roman Catholics there. This country has done amazing things and has integrated groups of all kinds and varieties that other systems would frankly find impossible to do. Mario Cuomo, coming back to the topic at hand, was an Italian Catholic from blue-collar roots. His father worked very hard, whose mother worked hard. They raised a family. He went to college. He wanted to play baseball. Instead, he went to law school, and when he got out, being at the top of his class, he couldn't get a job. Why? Because he was an Italian Catholic. And that really stung, and he went out anyway and became the governor of the Empire State and set a national standard for morality in public life.
And we'll miss him. But I have another Catholic question for you, because recently, just last week, President Obama has announced his new policy toward Cuba, and many people are saying that the Pope had something to do with this opening of relations with Cuba. What's your take on that?
It's possible the Pope did. Look, popes have been very instrumental certainly in recent memory. Pope John Paul II, an extraordinary individual, Holy Father of a major importance, who helped topple the Soviet Union, put Russia in its place, helped to free Poland, fought for religious freedom throughout the world, and created reconciliation between people of different faiths. So it's not unlikely that Pope Francis was somehow involved behind the scenes in ending the problem in Cuba for the United States, which has resulted in the expense of tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, and tried to bring some prosperity back to that island.
Yes, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm very much against the president's view on this. But nevertheless, it's interesting to see that, say, Senator Marco Rubio, for example, a Roman Catholic, is opposing this. So do American Catholics take any cues from the Pope?
Not anymore. And American Catholics are very, very, like the rest of society, becoming much more secularized. We see a decline, by the way, in generalized church attendance and in participation in voluntary and civic organizations, because people are much more secular. They're much more driven by smaller groupings, smaller relationships, and social networks that are less tangible. So it's a very different environment.
Doesn't mean that we don't have faith.
We have faith, but we are much more spiritual than we are religious organization driven. This is a very different argument. Can things return to the way it was? Not likely. Will the church continue to function? You bet. But it will be about faith and less about politics.
Let me ask you this question, because we just mentioned the big Republican bench. Why don't the Democrats have a bench?
Democrats have a different set of problems. Their coalition is much broader, and as a result, it's much less likely to be inclusive. The ideological problems within the Democratic Party are different than the ideological problems within the Republican Party. There's less contention within the Republican Party to this moment, but now there's going to be contention, which is probably good for it. Within the Democratic Party, there's two very strong wings that are at battle. One is the Clinton wing, one is the Obama wing, and we don't know how that's going to work out. We do know in the Republican Party the battle is for whether we want to win or whether we don't want to win, and that's what that bench is really about.
But briefly, what about the Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders wing? Even Bernie Sanders says he may run for president, although I hear other Democrats say when pigs fly.
Well, that's part of the Obama wing. The more left of the party and the center of the party, they're in different directions. With respect to the Republicans, their bench is very significant because it is not just religious, it is regional.
Okay, Dr. Sheinkopf, it's a pleasure to have you today, especially to reflect on Mario Cuomo. When we come back, we have so much to discuss. The president of the London Center, Herb London, will be talking about the status of America in the world, the threats from Iran, Cuba, China, and elsewhere. And we're also going to be talking with a political panel. What's new in politics and what will Congress be doing? After the break.